I came to the cafe where and works, just before closing time. The idea had struck me on my way home. Grab a coffee and take her for a walk. The weather was perfect, and it felt like a good opportunity to spend some time together, away from the usual routine. When I got to the front door, I noticed the closed sign was already up, and the door was locked. I peered through the glass and saw the lights were still on inside, but no one was at the counter. With the front door closed, I decided to go around to the back. It wasn't the first time I'd used the back entrance, and didn't mind, and it saved me the trouble of waiting outside. Tonight, I hadn't told her I'd be coming by. I liked the thought of surprising her, of catching her mid-routine and sharing a quiet moment before heading home. The back door gave its usual soft creak as I pushed it open. Inside, the familiar smell of coffee beans and cleaning supplies greeted me, along with the faint hum of the fridge in the storage area. The space was empty, just rows of neatly arranged supplies and silence. "Anne," I called out, keeping my voice low. The quiet seemed heavier than usual, but I shook the thought away. Maybe she was finishing up in the cafe hall. I stepped into the main space, expecting to see her tidying up or counting the register. Instead, I found the room completely still. Chairs were stacked on the tables, and the counters were spotless, everything in its place. But no Anne. A strange feeling settled in my chest, nothing I could put into words, just a vague unease. I looked toward the staff room. Maybe she was in there, finishing paperwork or grabbing her things. That had to be it. I headed for the staff room, my steps careful, almost hesitant. As I reached for the doorknob, I froze. I thought I heard something, a faint sound, muffled and hard to place, coming from the other side of the door. My hand hovered there, my breath catching for a moment. "Anne," I called again, softer this time. No response. I turned the handle and pushed the door open, unsure of what I'd find but unable to ignore the gnawing unease building inside me. I opened the door to the staff room, and for a moment, I didn't register what I was looking at. Then it hit me like a freight train. And wasn't alone. She was standing against the wall, her hands flat against it, her body pressed forward slightly. Behind her was a man, his body so close to hers that it was clear, painfully clear, what was going on. His hands were on her waist, and the way they moved made my stomach twist. The second they noticed me, they froze. Anne's head snapped toward me, her face pale, eyes wide with panic. The man stepped back just slightly, but the damage was done. The scene was already burned into my brain, no room for excuses or explanations. "What the hell is this?" I said, my voice low and sharp, and stammered, her words tumbling out in a panicked rush. "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head in disbelief. "Not supposed to be here? Sorry, didn't realize I needed to check your schedule before coming to see my wife. How long do such meetings last?" Neither of them answered. They just stood there, frozen like statues, staring at me. My fists clenched at my sides, but I held myself together. Barely. Then the guy, some scrawny wannabe Don Juan, tried to slip past me like he could just walk out of this unscathed. Nope. I stepped in his way, planting myself firmly between him and the exit. "Both of you are staying right here." I pulled out my phone, holding it up so they could see I wasn't bluffing. "I'm calling the cafe manager. Let's see how they feel about this little after-hours activity." Anne's face drained of color. "Norman, wait. Don't do this. Please, we can talk about this. It's not what it looks like." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Not what it looks like. Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're screwing around with him." I jabbed a finger in her lover's direction. "But sure, convince me otherwise. Go ahead." The guy finally spoke, his tone defensive and cold. "You better calm him down," he said to Anne, like I wasn't even standing there. "This was your idea, anyway. You're the one who came on to me. You deal with this. I'm not losing my job over it." For a moment, I was stunned into silence. His words hit like a slap, but not in the way he probably thought. Anne's so-called lover didn't even bother defending her. He just threw her under the bus like she was nothing. "Oh wow," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "What a real stand-up guy you picked, Anne. You must be so proud." The guy tried again to slip past me, muttering, "I've got nothing to do with this." "You're not going anywhere," I snapped, stepping into his path. My tone was sharp, firm, and left no room for argument. "I'm not done yet." I dialed the manager's number, the ringing tone cutting through the suffocating silence. And looked like she wanted to vanish into thin air, and the guy's face twisted with panic. They both knew exactly what was coming. I stared at the cafe manager's number on my phone, the line ringing in my ear. My pulse pounded in my temples, the weight of what I'd just witnessed bearing down on me like a freight train. When the manager picked up, I laid it all out. No embellishments, no extra drama, just the raw truth of what I'd walked in on. The silence on the other end of the call was almost louder than the words I'd spoken. "We'll handle this internally," the manager finally said, their tone clipped and professional. "Thank you for bringing it to our attention." I glanced back at Anne and her coworker, who stood frozen in the staff room, looking at me like I was the villain in this scenario. Anne's face was a mix of fear and disbelief, while her lover avoided my gaze entirely, suddenly very interested in the floor. "Good luck explaining this one," I said to no one in particular as I slipped my phone back into my pocket. I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving them to deal with their so-called work moments on their own. As the night air hit me, I realized something important. There was no point in staying to argue, to demand answers from people who clearly had none to give. I needed to leave, not just the cafe but the chaos they'd created. My life was already unraveling, and the only thing I could control now was how I handled it. When I got home, the silence was almost deafening. I stood in the doorway for what felt like forever, staring at the empty living room as the events of the evening replayed in my mind like a broken record. I couldn't focus, couldn't make sense of the whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, humiliation, and, underneath it all, a hollow ache I couldn't shake. I needed to do something, anything, to process what had just happened. So I grabbed my laptop, opened Reddit, and started typing. I wrote everything: the surprise visit, the locked front door, the back entrance, and the moment I walked into the staff room and saw my wife with another man. I poured it all out, sparing no details, and ended with the same question I kept asking myself: what do I do now? It didn't take long for the responses to roll in. The first wave of comments was a mix of sympathy and anger on my behalf. Asterisk, leave her. Cheating is a deal breaker. Asterisk, one user wrote. Asterisk, she didn't just betray you, she disrespected your entire marriage by doing this at her workplace. You don't need this toxicity in your life. Asterisk. Another comment struck a slightly different tone. Asterisk, I get that you're angry, and you have every right to be. But before making any big decisions, try to have a calm conversation with her. Hear her side, if you can even trust her, and decide from there. It might help you calm down, either way. Asterisk. Some focused on the professional angle. Asterisk, you did the right thing by calling her manager. This wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was incredibly unprofessional. I'd be curious to see how her workplace handles this because it could have serious consequences for both of them. Asterisk. Others were sharper, angrier. Asterisk, don't let that guy off the hook. He tried to throw her under the bus, but he was a willing participant. Make sure the manager knows exactly what he did so there are consequences for him too. Asterisk. And then there were the practical suggestions. Go to a lawyer right away, someone advised. Asterisk, even if you're not sure about divorce yet, it's better to know your rights and have a plan. Protect yourself financially and emotionally because this could spiral out of control. Asterisk. I sat there, scrolling through the comments, feeling an odd mix of validation and despair. These strangers, people who didn't know me or Anne, were giving me advice that felt painfully obvious and impossibly difficult all at once. One comment, buried under dozens of others, stood out to me. Asterisk, take your time. Figure out what you want. Don't rush into anything just because you're angry or hurt. You've already taken the first step by leaving the situation. Now focus on what's next for you. Asterisk. I didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was clear. My life had just changed forever, and it was up to me to figure out where to go from here. I sat in the living room, staring blankly at the wall. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I replayed everything in my head, the cafe, and her coworker, the pathetic excuses, and the sheer audacity of it all. A part of me was hoping I'd wake up and realize it was just a bad dream, but I knew better. The sound of keys rattling in the door snapped me out of my thoughts. And walked in, looking far too calm for someone who'd just been caught cheating. She didn't say anything right away, just set her bag down like it was any other night. I waited a beat, then another, before finally breaking the silence. So, I said, my tone sharp but controlled. Do you want to explain what the hell happened back there? Specifically, why your boyfriend decided to throw you under the bus and say this was all your idea? She froze for a second, then turned to look at me. Her expression was oddly calm, like she'd rehearsed this moment in her head and decided not to fight it. It's true, she said, her voice steady. I'm not going to make excuses. You saw everything with your own eyes. There's nothing more for me to say. I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. Wow. That's it. No tears, no denial, not even a half-assed apology? Just, yep, you caught me. Case closed. She shrugged, and for a moment, I thought I might actually lose my composure. But I didn't. How long has this been going on? I asked, my voice sharper now. It was the first time, she said, meeting my gaze. Before that, there was just flirting. I liked him from the moment he started working at the cafe. He's funny, confident, and we clicked. Tonight was the first time we took it further. And by further, you mean sneaking around in the back room of your workplace. I said, my tone sharp and unyielding. She flinched but didn't look away. I planned it, she admitted. I came up with the idea to stay late after closing. I don't know. I thought it would feel exciting, I guess. Exciting, I repeated, my voice laced with sarcasm. Well, I hope it was everything you dreamed of because you just threw our entire marriage away for it. She didn't answer, and the silence felt heavier than any words could have been. Why? I asked, my voice quieter now but still firm. Why would you do this to me? To us? And hesitated for a moment before responding. Because I've been losing feelings for you, she said, her tone almost detached. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but when I started working with him, it became obvious. I felt things I hadn't felt in years, and, she trailed off, shrugging like it was some kind of inevitability. I felt the words hit me like a gut punch, but at the same time, they explained so much. The distance, the coldness, the way she'd stopped looking at me like she used to. I'd noticed it all but had convinced myself it was just the natural ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. Turns out, I'd been wrong. I stood up, my voice calm but final. You know what, Anne? I'm done. Go pack your things. You're leaving tonight. Her eyes widened slightly. Norman, wait. No, I cut her off, raising a hand. We're not doing this. I'm not listening to you justify how screwing around with a coworker was somehow my fault. You made your choice, Anne. Now you can deal with the consequences. Go pack. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was trying to figure out if I was serious. Then, without another word, she turned and walked to the bedroom. I sat back down, exhaling slowly. My hands were steady, my voice had been firm, and I felt calm. Not happy, not relieved, but calm. For the first time all night, I realized that I wasn't the one losing anything here. She was. I spent the night in the living room, sitting on the couch with a blanket draped over me. The TV was on, playing something I wasn't really watching, just noise to fill the void. I could hear an upstairs, the sound of drawers opening and closing, the occasional thud of something being packed. I knew she wasn't planning to leave tonight, not without some sort of push, but hearing her pack was enough to remind me this was finally happening. She hadn't spoken to me since our conversation earlier, and honestly, I had no desire to speak to her, either. The thought of running into her in the kitchen or passing her in the hallway made my skin crawl. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the audacity of her calmness, her complete lack of remorse, that still twisted in my gut. As I sat there, I thought about everything we'd been through. Years of building a life together, and for what? Love alone wasn't enough to sustain a marriage. Trust, honesty, commitment, those were the foundations, and she'd shattered all of them in one night. Love without respect and loyalty is just a hollow shell, a lie we tell ourselves to avoid facing the truth. This wasn't an easy choice. I didn't take marriage lightly. But staying in a relationship where I'd never be able to trust her again? That wasn't a life. It wasn't even survival. It was self-destruction. The next morning, I was up before the sun, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. The house was quiet again, and packing seemingly paused for the night. I had made up my mind. If she hadn't left by the time I finished my coffee, I'd remind her that this was no longer her home. She needed to go, and she needed to go now. As the hours passed, I started taking practical steps to separate our lives. First, I canceled our joint accounts. I'd kept track of everything, so I knew what was mine and what was hers. It was surprisingly cathartic, like crossing items off a list and reclaiming small pieces of myself. Next, I redirected my mail and blocked her on every social media platform. Seeing her name pop up on my phone would only reopen wounds I was trying to heal. Each step was a small but important way of regaining control over my life. It wasn't easy. None of it was. Every action felt like driving a nail into the coffin of the life I thought we'd have together. But it had to be done. Nights were the hardest. The quiet hours when my mind would wander, replaying every memory, every conversation, every little sign I'd missed. Sometimes I'd wake up from dreams where everything was fine, only to have reality come crashing back down. Thankfully, I wasn't alone. Friends and family rallied around me, their support like a lifeline in a sea of chaos. Even Anne's parents and her brother reached out, apologizing for what had happened and offering their support. Her dad called me one night, saying, "I don't know what's wrong with her, but you deserve better than this." Hearing that from them meant more than I expected. It reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that what she'd done wasn't just a bump in the road. It was a complete betrayal of everything we'd built. In the weeks that followed, I started to see things more clearly. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's that leaving isn't a failure. It's an act of self-respect. Staying in a toxic situation doesn't make you noble, it just makes you miserable. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to piece back together. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. Pain has a way of sharpening your focus, making you see what truly matters. I won't pretend that I'm fully healed. It's a process, and some days are better than others. But I'm not stuck in that darkness anymore. The pain is still there, but it's dulled now, like a distant echo. In its place is something new. Hope. This is the end of a chapter, not the end of my story. I've started to find joy in the little things again. Walking outside, cooking meals for myself, even just sitting with a good book. Life goes on, and so will I. We are currently in the process of divorcing. The next evening, after a long day of sorting through the mess that had become my life, I sat down on the couch and opened my laptop. Logging into Reddit, I saw a flood of responses to the full story I'd posted. I'd poured everything into that post, every detail, every emotion, every decision I'd made. Part of me wasn't sure why I'd shared so much, but seeing the sheer number of comments reminded me why. I needed perspective. As I scrolled through the responses, a few key themes emerged. Walk away and don't look back. One of the top comments read, "Asterisk, you've already made the hardest choice by deciding to leave." Don't let her pull you back in with empty promises or manipulative excuses. She's shown you who she really is, and you deserve a fresh start. Asterisk. Another user chimed in. Asterisk, people like her don't change overnight, and even if she claims she'll never do it again, the trust is gone. Don't let her guilt trip you into staying. Focus on your healing. Asterisk. The overwhelming consensus was clear. Staying in the marriage would only prolong the pain. You're stronger than you think. Several users offered words of encouragement, pointing out the strength it took to confront and set boundaries and take steps toward independence. One comment that stuck with me read, Asterisk, it's easy to feel like you've failed, but you haven't. You took action instead of staying stuck in a toxic situation, and that takes courage. You're stronger than you realize. Keep moving forward. Asterisk. Another user added, Asterisk, this is going to hurt for a while, but you'll come out of it stronger. Use this as a chance to rebuild your life on your terms. You've got this. Asterisk. A lot of people emphasize the importance of focusing on my own well-being. Get into therapy if you're not already, one user suggested. Asterisk, a good therapist will help you process the betrayal and rebuild your confidence. Asterisk. Another user shared a similar story and wrote, Asterisk, the best revenge is living well. Take this time to rediscover yourself. Pick up old hobbies, spend time with friends and family, and don't rush into anything new. Healing takes time, but it's worth it. Asterisk. Some users offered insights about learning from the experience, particularly about trust and boundaries. This wasn't your fault, one comment read. Asterisk, but it's a reminder to pay attention to red flags and listen to your instincts in the future. You deserve a partner who respects you and values your relationship as much as you do. Asterisk. Another added, Asterisk, this is a painful lesson, but it's also an opportunity. You've learned what you won't tolerate and what you truly need in a partner. Use that knowledge to build a better future for yourself. Asterisk. Several comments called out Anne's affair partner, reminding me that he wasn't innocent in this mess. Make sure her workplace handles this properly, one user suggested. Asterisk, he tried to throw her under the bus, but he's just as responsible. Don't let him get away with it scot-free. Asterisk. The most hopeful comments reminded me that this chapter of my life didn't define me. This is the end of one story, but it's the beginning of another, one user wrote. Asterisk, the best thing you can do now is focus on building a life you love. You've got a clean slate. Use it. Asterisk. Another comment put it simply. Asterisk, it gets better. It's hard to see that now, but one day, you'll look back and realize this was the moment you took control of your life. Stay strong. Asterisk. As I closed my laptop, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness for what I'd lost, gratitude for the support of strangers, and a flicker of hope for the future. These people didn't know me, but their words reminded me I wasn't alone. They were right. This was the end of one chapter, but it wasn't the end of my story. Do you think I made the right choice? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your point of view means more to me than you can imagine.